Okay, let's talk about the future of air combat. I want you to imagine a battle space where every single aircraft, every missile, every drop of fuel is accounted for, not on some spreadsheet, but on a secure, unhackable ledger that lives in the sky. Well, this isn't just sci-fi anymore. This is the core idea behind Project STRATOS, a truly radical proposal to build the next generation of air supremacy on a blockchain. So let's dive in and break down how this whole thing is supposed to work.
All right, here's our flight plan. First, we'll look at the big problem in modern air combat, what we're calling the velocity challenge. Then we'll explore the Stratos solution, this blockchain in the sky. After that, we'll get into the engine of the whole system, the 147 token doctrine. We'll see it in action with some real-world scenarios, and then we'll wrap up with the huge strategic shift this all represents.
So, first things first, why? Why do we even need a system as wild as Stratos? Well, it all comes down to the absolutely insane speed and complexity of modern warfare. The old ways just aren't going to cut it anymore. Right now, the way things are run is through a central command hub, an air operations center that calls the shots. But think about that for a second. That creates a massive single point of failure. It's what the military calls a decapitation risk. If an enemy takes out that one central node, well, you could have the most advanced air force in the world and it could completely fall apart in an instant. And this centralization creates something called the verification gap. A pilot, at the end of the day, has to trust their gut, their instruments, and the voice on the radio. But what happens when the battle is moving at hypersonic speeds and the data itself is a lie? An enemy could use machine-speed cyber attacks to trick a friendly drone into attacking its own forces. Or maybe a tiny microchip in the flight control system was compromised in the supply chain, and it's just waiting to fail at the worst possible moment. Human senses are just way, way too slow to deal with that kind of threat. So the proposed solution here is to just completely flip the script. Instead of centralized command, you move to decentralized verification. And that right there is the core idea of Project Stratos. Stratos imagines what it calls a sky mesh. In the system, every single aircraft, every fighter, every bomber, every tanker becomes a node on a massive distributed ledger. They're all constantly talking to each other, constantly validating the status and the integrity of the entire fleet. This creates an ecosystem where you don't just hope a jet is ready to fly. You have mathematical, cryptographic proof of flight readiness. And this really shows you the genius of the strategic shift. You're moving away from a slow, brittle command structure that has that one critical weak point, and you're moving toward a resilient, self-healing network that verifies everything at the speed of light. There's no single head to cut off anymore. The network itself is the command. Now, this isn't just a software fantasy. It has to be powered by some serious, specialized hardware. The idea is to have a flight-certified module, let's call it the Solex Flight Guard, installed in every aircraft. This little box would be a powerhouse. It would use sensor fusion to spot GPS spoofing, it would hold the aircraft's unhackable private keys in a crypto core, and it can even scan parts during maintenance to make sure they're not counterfeits. Of course, the hardware itself becomes a target, but because the network is decentralized, losing one piece of hardware doesn't bring the whole system crashing down. Okay, now we get to the engine of Stratos. And honestly, this is where the concept becomes a true game changer. It's called the 147 token doctrine. And it's basically an attempt to write the laws of air power physics into a digital economy. It's pretty wild.
The entire system is built around this really elegant 147 architecture. It sounds complex, but it's actually pretty simple. One main index at the top, 4 mission pillars, and 7 vital resource sectors.
So at the very top, you have the 1. That's the Stratos index. The best way to think about this is like the Dow Jones Industrial Average for the entire Air Force. It's a single, unhackable number that gives you a real-time measure of your total combat power. It takes into account every plane, every weapon, all the available fuel, and if that number starts to dip, commanders know they're losing combat power before a single shot has even been fired. Okay, so beneath that main index, you have the 4 pillars. These are what they call authority tokens, and they basically represent a commander's intent. What is the goal of the mission? Is it air-to-air combat? Then you're assigning dominance tokens. Is it a strategic bombing run? That's a strike token. These tokens get digitally assigned to specific jets to authorize them for that specific mission. It's like giving them their marching orders, but cryptographic. And finally, we get to the 7 sectors. Now, these are the utility tokens, and they represent the real-world physical stuff you need to actually fly and fight. You see, you can't just execute a strike mission because you have the token. You also need the required amount of fuel,
ordnance, and a valid maintenance token for the jet. But it gets even cooler. The bio token could track a pilot's training and certifications to ensure they're even qualified to fly that F-35. The base token could manage things like runway availability. It paints a complete, real-time, ungameable picture of your total mission readiness.
So, all this theory is great, right? But how does it actually come together in the real world? Let's walk through a couple of scenarios to see what this looks like in practice, from the hangar all the way to a dogfight. All right, first up, a simple pre-flight check. Imagine a crew chief goes to do their walk-around. They scan the landing gear. The system instantly verifies its $maint token on the blockchain, confirming it's a legitimate part with a valid service history. They load weapons onto the jet, which mints new ordnance tokens directly to that jet's digital wallet. Now here's the kicker. If any of these checks fail, if the system detects a counterfeit part, for instance, the jet's own software will physically refuse to start the engines. No green light, no flight.
Or what about this? You've got an unmanned drone flying as a loyal wingman. An enemy hacker manages to send it a spoofed command, telling it to attack a friendly target. The drone doesn't just obey blindly. The first thing it does is check the sender's digital wallet. It asks, hey, do you have a valid dominance mission token that's been signed by Air Force Command? The answer is no. So the command is instantly ignored and the hostile signal is flagged for everyone on the network to see. It's a mathematical wall against deception.
Let's talk logistics. Here's a B-21 bomber approaching a refueling tanker. You can see its digital wallet shows it's holding $15,000 fuel tokens, which represents its current fuel on board. Now, as the physical jet fuel gets pumped from the tanker to the bomber, the tanker's wallet is simultaneously transferring 50,000 fuel tokens to the bomber's wallet. It's a perfect one-to-one swap of physical and digital assets. And the moment that transaction is complete, the entire global logistics ledger is updated. Planners back at the Pentagon can see that bomber's new extended range in real time. No radio calls, no guesswork, just pure data. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. This sounds like it's from a movie set 50 years in the future. But the concept actually lays out a pretty clear phased roadmap. It would start with digital twin simulations, then move to hardware prototypes like a smart pylon that automatically tracks the weapons loaded onto it, followed by live SkyMesh flight tests. The ultimate goal is full integration by 2030 into the military's massive interconnected network, a project known as JDAC-2. So when you boil this all down, the crucial point here isn't really about tokens or blockchain technology itself. It's about a fundamental philosophical shift in how you prepare for and conduct warfare in the 21st century. At the end of the day, Project Stratos is about one thing: replacing fallible human trust with infallible mathematical proof. Proof that the part is genuine. Proof that the fuel was delivered. Proof that the command is legitimate. In a world of deepfakes, GPS spoofing, and relentless cyber warfare, this kind of cryptographic certainty might not just be an advantage anymore, it might be the absolute non-negotiable requirement for victory.